he's done, he does make at least 31 or so hours. What he refers to me.
And he's supposed to do how many hours?
That I don't recall.
It was 40 hours.
40 hours, so he's almost there. Ms. Waldrop, does the state object to any extension?
No, Your Honor.
All right, how much of an extension are you requesting?
Is 1 month possible, Judge?
Sure. Well, Ms. Bolton, what is the next compliance reset date? To give him about 30 days? Mm.
One that's already created.
Okay,
But there is a status on October 6th that I could
put it on.
place on it. Would that be okay?
That's fine with me. Does that give your client enough time?
We will make it work.
All right, and let's let him know there won't be any other resets, so he needs to get that done by October 6th.
Absolutely. Let him know that, Judge. Thank you.
All right, does that conclude your business, Mr. Mandelli?
Yes, it does.
All right, take care. Have a great afternoon.
Take care.
All right, we're gonna now take up the specialty set motion, the case of Joshua Turner, 20 CR 005393F. A simple battery case in which the offense date was the 14th of March of 2019. I have not had a chance to review this ahead of time because our Odyssey was not working. So if the parties would indulge and please give me more information than you might think is necessary, such that I can get through that.
Judge Williams,
One second. Yes.
sorry, this is Courtney Howard. I'm the court reporter. I can't hear Miss Waldrop.
Okay, we'll have her come to the podium.
Or if you just move her mic, that'll be fine. Thank you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So the first one, motion in the name.
Oh, yeah. Judge, I have one more for you.
Okay, thank you. There's how many motions filed? Four. One, two. There's only three. What's the fourth one? Okay. Good morning, council. Give me one moment. We're trying to get it printed.
Sure, Judge. As a preliminary matter, I brought with me a 50-foot HDMI cable to plug into the TV over there. Is there
Okay.
a better way for me to play video so
Sure.
everyone can see?
Well, actually, I don't know. Hopefully that works.
That's on the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to go ahead and try?
Well, if someone has the remote to the TV, I'm plugged into HDMI 1, you would have to switch it to the input for HDMI 1.
Her phone is over there.
We're gonna lose our Zoom photo, but that's all right.
You can also join the Zoom and screen share.
Would you rather go ahead and join? So,
I just pay for SMS at the Zoom.
okay.
Okay, but then it's gonna create that echo problem. That's the only issue. If he joins Zoom to show a video, we get
I'm
that
not sure the
feedback.
court is supposed to transcribe the video.
Ms. Howard, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. And if it's a video, I don't need to see it. It's okay.
Right, that's fine. Can you see as well? You can still see.
I can see all of you guys. I just need
Okay.
to,
We want to make sure that the camera was not disturbed by putting on the video.
oh, the defense counsel, I just can't see him. So if he could announce his name, or I may not. Whoop, I didn't
All
hear you.
right, so,
Jason Parnell.
Okay, thank you.
all right, so I'm sorry, Ms. Bolton, which ones were they requesting we do first? Motion for.
Judge, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm Matt Hirsch. My client's here. She's lost. I'm gonna go find her.
That's fine. That's Ms. Hood?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Yes.
If the attorney is trying to play his discovery through the screen, he could join the Zoom and I can give him co-host rights. That might be easier than trying to fiddle
We
with the.
suggested that, but what about that echo that always seems to happen when a computer joins us, not the bench? That was what happened to me last time. Has no one else? Okay.
I-
Yeah, I think she can just leave herself and then
But then can everybody else hear if I'm muted?
if he screen shares, yes, because he's not.
Okay.
Yeah, so he would have.
This may not work, sir. Mr. Cardinal, you may have to join the Zoom and then they give you permission to share screen. I'm gonna mute myself in the hopes we don't get that echo.
If you mute yourself, I can't hear anything. Sorry, Judge. If you mute yourself, I can't hear anything now.
Yeah, I know, I'm aware,
Oh.
I'm aware.
I'm sorry. I can't hear anything.
I'm muted.
Thank
Right now,
I'm sorry, Judge.
I said you're not at the point where the defendant would consider a plea at this time.
No, Judge, I believe negotiations are at an impasse.
All right, and we cannot attempt to pre-try maybe one additional time, even while we're doing this. Yeah, it's gonna take you a second to get on. We might want to discuss it anyway. All right? Okay, I thank you, Ms. Bolton.
You said Folco?
Yes.
Okay, it's asking for a username and password.
You gotta go to, go do the guest one and then go to, open up a browser and it'll allow you in as a Fulton County guest. Try that one.
And Your Honor, if we could just approach, just prior to starting the hearing,
Public?
Yes.
both defense counsel and I.
Next.
Right, so we're gonna be addressing the motion in limine first and then the motion for immunity from prosecution.
I believe it's the motion for immunity,
I'm sorry,
the motion for immunity.
and, it doesn't matter which order, but
Oh,
let's
okay.
do those two first.
Okay, yes, we were gonna
On
do
the
this.
floor. Yeah.
Okay. When we do
Online,
the
right.
motion to exclude her testimony. So I'll just send her a text.
We should almost take this other one first. That's quick, bench warrant versus watching a video. And when you go get her, but that one is like, it's gonna take a while, then they can just go home. This is just a motion to set aside a bench warrant. FPA, I'm assuming. Is that what happened?
No, I'm saying.
Okay.
So,
Go ahead, that's fine, but I'm just saying that this is gonna take a second, that seems like that's gonna, they can let that young lady go home.
I'll defer to you. Okay.
I'm just saying, it's taking us a minute, we could have probably been,
Let's see how far it is.
she's probably gonna come in and say, it doesn't matter, we've already started, but, yeah, I'm assuming. I just need to know, that she failed to appear before?
You all can sit together, come to the front. Yeah, come to the front.
Thank you.
First, yeah.
Okay, let's just see what happened while we're trying. It seems like we can get this done while we're trying to figure out the logistics of the other one. And Ms. Waldrop, I hate to ask you to pivot, but while we're doing the technical logistics of this other case, it appears to me that this one is just a motion to set aside bench warrant. Is there an additional motion here?
No, ma'am. Just wanted to, take its natural progression. It was a 3-year-old arrest. It was right when COVID started and she didn't get the notice for her arraignment. We'll definitely.
Do we have a return to sender?
Yes.
Okay, I'm inclined to remove the bench warrant. He is gonna do that thing that drives me crazy. Ms. Waldrop, does the state object to the motion to remove the?
Your Honor, I'm going to defer to the court. on
All
that.
right, we will set aside that bench warrant, having proved that she failed to give the notice.
Thank you, Judge.
All right,
And also, have you done a change of address?
I have my new license. I'm gonna do that today.
Yeah, so you need to go to the first.
don't leave and do that now, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll go to the clerk's office. I'll take her there, Judge.
Okay. All right, does that conclude your business as well?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
All right. Well, does he need to give me an order or is there a form?
It's a form here.
Okay.
Yeah, I submitted an order too, I think, but I may not have, but I'm,
If you like it.
either way, I'm glad.
Fine. You all both can be excused. Feel free to go up there right now and change that address, all right? Take care. Have a good day.
Hold on, I want to give her another day. You want me to give her another a month out?
Yes,
Or
Hold on one second.
we're gonna give you an Orca status day.
For real.
Yeah,
Live free or die attitude up there.
okay. So we're gonna reset your case
Yeah.
to proceed forward and come to a status hearing conference on October the 6th.
Yeah.
Will this remain with Orca?
It will.
A lot in Boston, so the money's good.
This is on option also.
It's good expensive.
Did you hear that, council? You can come via Zoom if you wish for that.
Great, Judge.
All right,
And I'll reach out to the solicitor on it.
It's not that way.
wonderful.
Really?
Okay,
Oh.
I know, we can hear you.
all right. And you know where to go to change the address, J150, okay. All right, you all agree, I think, October 6th.
Thank you.
All right, let's proceed. I'm sorry, let's go back to, and Ms. Waldrop asked to approach, so you all, I'm gonna mute this and you all can come to this side.
Don't forget to unmute, Judge. Sorry.
All right,
Judge, I think that puts me up first. If I may make a bit of an opening statement.
yes. Okay, please proceed.
Judge, I'd like to invoke the rule if that's okay, before we get started.
Yes, you may. Okay.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Let me know when you're ready, Judge.
I'm ready. Please proceed.
All right, Judge. First, let me introduce myself. I'm Attorney Jason Carnell. Obviously, I'm here representing Mr. Turner today, the defendant in this case. I think it's important for Your Honor to understand the order of events before we start spilling out testimony on the record. So the police are called to a hotel in East Point with, I guess, somebody from the front desk called. There was a domestic complaint from one of the residents at the hotel, something about their neighbor, basically the neighboring room. Sergeant Smith shows up. So I believe he was Sergeant Smith at the time. I think he's just Officer Smith. He's the one that is with Fulton County Schools now. He's the first officer to show up, and Joshua, the defendant, goes and waits out in the hall while Sergeant Smith talks with Miss Barringer inside the room. Now, there's no video footage of this. For some reason, Sergeant Smith's body cam footage didn't start until substantially later. Actually, his body cam footage starts right about the time that Corporal Leary, and I think he's Investigator Leary now, right about the time that he shows up. So that initial questioning, there's no video footage of. Corporal Leary shows up. Sergeant Smith goes out in the hall. At this point, he hasn't really, I guess you could say, gotten anything. Miss Barringer hasn't really told him anything at this point. I don't really know how long he was in there for before Corporal Leary shows up. So Sergeant Smith goes out in the hall and stands out in the hall with Joshua. Corporal Leary goes in to speak with Miss Barringer. And after about 5 minutes of that, Corporal Leary comes out and puts the handcuffs on Joshua. So at this point, he hasn't asked him any questions, just comes out and puts the cuffs on him. He doesn't communicate to Sergeant Smith why he has arrested Joshua. He just comes out, puts the handcuffs on Joshua, and then Corporal Leary goes back in. I'm sorry, Sergeant Smith goes back into the room to ask additional questions of Miss Barringer. After Joshua is in handcuffs, Officer Kimberly Smith arrives. I didn't know she was going to be here today, but there is a video Kimberly Davis arrives. There's a video for her. There's actually two videos. For some reason, the video stops in the middle and then starts again. She's present for some of Corporal Leary in the hallway, and she's also present for some of what Sergeant Smith is asking inside the room. So I may be introducing all four videos today. I may be playing footage from all four videos today from the three officers. But the two most important ones are, of course, the ones from Corporal Leary and one from Sergeant Smith. And the most important stuff in those videos is actually generally what Miss Barringer says, all of which, unfortunately, is very hard to hear. Usually when the officers are questioning her, they're standing pretty far away from her. I had to frequently replay these videos over and over again for myself with earbuds in to try and understand exactly what was being said. And so I just want to warn Your Honor today that I may have to do the exact same thing when refreshing the recollection of the officers. But the evidence today is going to show that Joshua and Miss Behringer had a stressful travel day. Neither one of them were from here. At the time, they were living in, Miss Behringer, I believe, was in New Hampshire, and and Joshua was in Maine. And they had traveled down here to Georgia. They had flown in that day. The next day, they were going to go to Savannah, Georgia to see Joshua's sister. And then I guess they were going to travel on from there to go to Panama City Beach to go see Miss Behringer's mother. But they had a rough travel day. And Miss Behringer was having some type of panic attack. These panic attacks are pretty common for Miss Behringer. She's on medication for them. She admits this several times to the officers. And of course, because she and Mr. Turner had been dating for approximately a year at this point, Mr. Turner was well aware of these types of panic attacks. He had grown accustomed to them. He knew he didn't need to be there in the room while this was going on. So despite the long travel day, Joshua was actually trying to leave the hotel room when this incident happened. He was trying to get away from Miss Behringer and from her panic attack, and she would not allow him to leave. This is admitted in the videos 5 times that she didn't want him to leave and she wouldn't let him leave. Ultimately, she tried to physically prevent him from leaving the room, and she proceeded to grab him and jump on him when he managed to push his way past her. He fell backwards onto the hide-a-bed that had been rolled out in the living room, and Miss Behringer rolled off of him, hitting herself on the mattress or something else on the way down. So, of course, the people in the next room, they overheard this scuffle. They called the police, or they called the front desk, and then called the police. When there was a knock at the door, Miss Behringer was terrified that she was going to get in trouble for what she had just done to Joshua. She asked him not to tell on her, not to tell the police what had happened. And when he was initially questioned, he tried to cover up. The police, when they arrived, engaged in bold-faced stereotyping. You'll see from the videos, Corporal Leary's questions specifically were all based on the assumption that Miss Behringer was the victim. And after initial hesitation, she gave Corporal Leary enough of what he was looking for to arrest Joshua. He then failed to Mirandize Joshua and proceeded to question him in the hall. Miss Behringer first falsely imprisoned Joshua in that hotel room, and then she proceeded to attack him by jumping on his back when he tried to leave. The law says that a victim of false imprisonment has the right to defend against the violation of his or her personal liberty. And whatever Joshua did in response to Miss Behringer jumping on his back was justified and was done in self-defense. And as such, he should be granted immunity from prosecution.
All right, thank you. Ms. Waldrop?
Your Honor, the state intends to show through the evidence of the testimony of Officers Leary, Officer Smith, as well as the victim in the case, Ms. Carrie Behringer, that this was a violent, manipulative, controlling, and tumultuous relationship that Ms. Behringer was subjected to over a course of approximately 2 years. On this particular day, counsel is right, they flew into Atlanta. The plans were that they would later drive to Savannah to visit the defendant's mother and sister. And the only thing that went terribly wrong was that the defendant's temper got completely and totally out of control. It began with him drinking on the plane ride. He then proceeded to berate Casey the victim. When they got into the airport, Ms. Behringer decided that she was not going to have that and she was going to get away from him. And she did. She went and booked herself into a hotel room, the Holiday Inn on Virginia Avenue in Fulton County, and got multiple calls from the defendant stating that he was going to harm himself and he was going to hurt himself if she did not tell him where it is that she was. So she eventually acquiesced, informed him of where it was that she was staying. She allowed him to come to the room, and they got into, well, I wouldn't even call it a verbal argument. It was once again the defendant yelling, spitting on Casey, screaming at her, threatening to jump off of the balcony, acting completely and totally erratic, out of control, and violent. She went into the bedroom in order to get away from him. And he begins kicking and pounding on the door to the point where she opens it because she's so concerned that the noise is going to disturb the other guest in the hotel room. At that point, Your Honor, within the bedroom of the hotel suite, the defendant not only pushes Casey, but at some point picks her up, slams her into the bed, to the point where the headboard is broken. She hits her head and the headboard of the bed is broken. She suffered injuries that included marks on her arms and her face, as well as a bloody nose, as well as bleeding from her ear. And you'll hear testimony from the officers that they actually observed these visible injuries on Ms. Behringer. The commotion was so loud and disturbing that a guest called down to the front desk of the hotel and informed them that there was an altercation. They could hear yelling, crying in room 428, which was the room of Ms. Behringer and the defendant. And at one point they heard a female voice ask, "Why did you hit me?" So the front desk then calls police. Officers Smith, formerly of East Point PD, now at Fulton County Schools PD, Officer Leary, and Officer Davis, Corporal Leary, excuse me, and Sergeant Davis do show up at various times on the scene, varying times. Upon initially speaking with Ms. Behringer, she corroborated the defendant's story of this nosebleed. However, upon them being able to separate the two, and upon Officer Leary being further able to speak with Ms. Behringer, she came forward about what really happened and how she had been slammed into the headboard, causing her injuries. The officer who spoke to the defendant was Officer Smith. He asked the defendant to speak with him outside of the room. This is not unusual, he will tell you, in investigating domestic violence cases, to separate the two parties and get both sides of the story. In speaking with the defendant, Officer Smith, the defendant tells Officer Smith about this nosebleed story. But once Officer Smith hears from Corporal Leary the truth that Casey has informed him of, he makes the determination based on not only those statements from Ms. Behringer, the visible injuries that he observed on Ms. Behringer, but also a security guard who had gone up to the room before police arrived and seen Ms. Behringer pick herself up off of the floor. Based on all of those things, he made the determination that there was probable cause for the arrest of the defendant. Casey will testify that she never hit the defendant first, that she never struck the defendant, that she never touched him. She will also testify that this cycle of violence, is what I would call it, is something that has been prevalent in their relationship for quite some time. And she will testify as to other, subsequent incidents and difficulties and prior difficulties between these two parties. And so, Your Honor, that is what we expect the evidence to show through the testimony of Officers Leary, Officer Smith, and the victim in this case, Ms. Casey Behringer.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ponchero. All right. I'm still waiting. Are we able to print that or no? It's coming. Okay. All right, Mr. Cottrell. you
Ready,
good?
Judge?
Yes, I'm ready.
I'm going to call Joshua Turner to the stand.
Yes, you may. I wish I could print for myself up here. Is there a way to print from the bench? No.
If you are connected to this printer, yes.
I'm not.
Yeah, you'd have to.
Okay, so I'll just have to.
Joshua Turner.
Solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Joshua, could you state your full name for the record?
Joshua Adam Turner.
Joshua, were you previously in a relationship with Miss Casey Behringer?
Yes.
And neither one of you live here in Atlanta, right?
No, sir.
Okay, neither one of you were either one of you residing here in the Atlanta area back in March of 2019?
No, sir.
Were you in a relationship with Miss Behringer back in March of 2019?
Yes, sir.
And did the two of you have some reason to visit Atlanta back in March of 2019?
We did.
Okay. At that time, how long had the two of you been dating?
About a year.
And what was the purpose of your visit to the Atlanta area back in March of 2019?
We were to visit my sister and mother first in Savannah, Georgia, who I had not seen in years, and then make our way to Panama City Beach, where her mother lives.
And how did you guys get to Atlanta?
We flew.
Where did you fly out of?
Boston.
Was it a direct flight or did you guys have to stop along the way?
It was a direct flight.
And what time, if you recall, did your plane land here in the Atlanta area?
Sometime before around midnight, I think.
Where were you guys planning to stay?
We were planning to stay initial hotel. I don't recollect exactly which one, but when we arrived, it was overbooked.
How were you planning to get to that hotel?
A rental car.
Did you get the rental car?
I did.
And who had the rental car reservation? You or Miss Behringer?
I had it.
When you got to the airport, did you guys have problems with that rental car reservation?
We did.
And what kind of problems?
There was something to do with my debit card. I guess I hadn't let my bank know that I was traveling out of state. So every time I tried to pay the security deposit, it was rejected. And that was the issue.
Did you eventually get that straightened out?
I did. I was able to use another card and get that sorted out.
Did you guys have the hotel that we were talking about earlier? Did you guys have a reservation to stay at that hotel?
Yes, sir.
And whose name was that hotel reservation in?
That was under mine.
Did you guys, I think you said earlier that hotel was overbooked when you guys arrived?
It was overbooked.
And so did they recommend another hotel to you?
They did. They directed us to East Point.
So what time did you finally get to that hotel, the one in East Point?
Oh, that's hard to say. Probably closer to 1, 2, or early morning hours, I would say.
Were you agitated due to all of these, I guess you could say, speed bumps in your travel plans?
Naturally, I think we both were.
How would you describe Miss Behringer's attitude and her behavior at this time?
She was rather irritated. I had having problems at the rental car pickup caused her to be very agitated with me. Things not working out caused me to be agitated with the clerk that was renting the car with me. So after that, she was pretty aggressively upset.
So when you guys got to this hotel in East Point, did they have a room for you?
They did.
Okay. And I'm assuming you guys rented that room?
We did.
And when you got the room, how was she behaving?
Wanting to continue the fight. Very agitated still. I'm not sure if she was having a panic attack at that exact moment, but she was visibly stressed.
You say a panic attack. Have you witnessed Miss Behringer having panic attacks before?
Very often.
Had Miss Behringer admitted to you that she was on medication for behavioral and psychological problems?
Yes, sir. It was well known.
Do you have any idea how many medications she was taking for this?
I believe 4, 5, maybe. I think 4.
Do you know what types of medication she was taking?
I do.
Objection, Your Honor, relevance of the type of medication.
All right, I'm inclined to agree with Ms. Waldrop. Continue.
Were either one of you trying to end this argument that started when you got back, when you got to the hotel room?
I was trying to end it. I just wanted to go to sleep.
And to facilitate going to sleep, I mean, what sort of things were you doing?
Actually had pulled out the pull-out couch, the sofa bed that was located next to the front door, which is separate from the back bedroom that had its own bed. So I had, in other words, I had decided to sleep away from her so she could have the other room.
And what was her response to that?
She was still visibly upset. She didn't want to, in the argument, she didn't want to go to bed. She wanted to continue arguing with me.
And so what did you do?
I tried to leave.
And when you went to leave, what did she do?
She got between me and the front door and would not allow me to leave.
So as she's standing in front of the front door, what did you do?
I went for the back door.
Were you able to get out the back door?
I was able to get out the door, but we were on either the second or the third floor, so there wasn't a way for me to get out that way.
So was it a balcony?
Yes, sir.
When you realized that you couldn't jump off the balcony to get away from her, what did you do?
I went back for the front door.
And what did she do in response to that?
She immediately got between me and the door and told me that she would refuse to let me leave.
And what did you do in response?
I pulled out my phone and started recording her explaining what was happening.
What do you mean by explaining what was happening?
I literally pulled my phone out, started recording and said, "This girl will not allow me to leave."
And did she stop?
She did.
And then what did you do?
She stepped aside. I stopped recording, went to open the door, and she jumped on me.
And how did you respond to this?
Quickly looked for the quickest place to, or means to get her off of me, and that was going down on the sofa bed together.
Would you describe this as a controlled descent? I mean, were you able to set her down gently?
As gently as I could, also keeping in mind that someone was on me physically, attacking me. But yes, obviously I didn't, go down to the ground. We went down to the safest, softest spot.
All right. So when you come to a stop, where are you?
On the bed, on the sofa bed,
And where was she?
same spot.
And did she say anything?
She did. She said, "You hit me."
Do you have any idea what she hit when you were trying to get her off of you?
I believe she maybe hit her head on the bed. I mean, that's not, a huge mattress. It's a fold up frame for a couch bed.
So it's a thin mattress?
Yeah, I would say.
Did she sustain an injury during this?
She did have a very slight nosebleed.
Did you help her with this nosebleed?
Of course, I helped her.
How so?
I grabbed her a towel. I tried to console her. Obviously, she had sustained an injury. I wasn't going to just allow her to suffer. So I did try and help her.
Was she apologetic for her actions after this?
After a few seconds and sort of calming down to where she could talk, yes, she was.
Did she say anything about her getting in trouble?
She said that she didn't want to get in trouble. She said that she didn't want me to get in trouble. And I reminded her that, she had initiated the physical contact and that she would be the one to get in trouble, which made her very upset. And she was apologetic and begged me not to tell anybody what happened.
So she asked you to lie for her?
She did. She did.
How long after this did you get a knock at the door?
It was very quickly.
And who was it?
It was the first officer, Sergeant Smith, I believe.
And did Sergeant Smith, did he ask you a question?
Yes, he asked me what was going on.
And what did you tell him?
I told him that, we were having an argument and that she had a nosebleed.
Did you tell her that she frequently gets nosebleeds?
I did.
Now, did Sergeant Smith, did he ask you to step out in the hall?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then what did Sergeant Smith do?
I think he went inside to question Casey.
How long were you out in the hall before the second officer arrived, Corporal Leary?
Minutes, maybe.
And when the second officer arrived, did he stay out in the hall with you or did he go in to question Casey?
He went in to question Casey.
How long was the second officer in the room before he came back out in the hall?
I think 5-6 minutes.
And when he came back out in the hall, what did he do?
He immediately arrested me.
Had he asked you any questions before arresting you?
The officer had not asked me anything.
After placing you in handcuffs, did he give you a Miranda warning?
No, sir, he did not.
Did he then proceed to question you?
More like accusingly asking me questions. And I was just responding.
How long did this go on for?
I don't know, a couple minutes, few minutes, not long.
At any point, did he or any other officer give you a Miranda warning?
No, sir.
Were you taken to jail that night?
I was taken to jail. Yes, sir.
Were you booked in?
I was booked.
How'd you bond out?
I bonded out the next morning on my own reconnaissance. I've never been in trouble.
How did the remainder of your trip to Georgia go?
All things considered, it went pretty well.
Did you and Miss Behringer stay together after that?
Did
Did you eventually move in with Miss Behringer?
Yes, sir, we did.
Where did you guys, where did you move in with her?
Into a house in Wolfboro, New Hampshire that her mother owns.
Do you know when you guys moved in together?
I believe it was end of April, first part of May, 2020.
So a little over a year after this incident?
Correct.
Joshua, was that the last time Miss Behringer ever attacked you or put her hands on you?
No, sir.
When was the next time?
I believe in May of that year,
May of 2019 or May of 2020 after you guys moved in together?
2020.
Can you tell me about the next time it happened?
I can. I through a hidden folder on her iPad, found 500 to 600 very revealing pictures of her and videos.
Objection, Your Honor, to the nature of the content of whatever he may have found. I mean, you can just testify that he had found pictures.
I'll allow it. Go
It's
ahead.
irrelevant.
I'll allow it. Go ahead.
Very revealing pictures of and clothing that I'd never seen before, obviously photos I'd never seen and videos, including her saying someone else's name while doing some things.
Objection, Your Honor, the content of it is irrelevant to his actions on this particular day.
Judge, the content is obviously what leads to the subsequent violent acts by Miss Behringer.
I
Your Honor,
agree.
this is a
The
motion for immunity.
confrontation.
He's alleging justification. Whatever he may have seen does not justify his actions.
Judge, I can certainly recall the witness later when we take up the motions in limine. I just figured it would be fine to get this out now. I mean, I would
I'm
imagine.
gonna allow it for now, but let's keep that pretty tight, all right? Go ahead, very briefly.
So Joshua, you were indicating that these were some explicit videos and photos and she was calling out someone else's name in one of the videos. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you find evidence that she had sent some of this material to someone else?
I did.
And do you know who that was?
I do.
What was his name?
His name is Tom Babb.
And is Tom Babb, is he like a local person, someone near you guys?
He's actually someone that worked with Casey prior and he did not live anywhere near us.
And Miss Behringer, I think she worked at a Volkswagen dealership.
Yes, sir.
And so he was a former employee there as well.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And had she been sending these pictures and videos to him recently?
For quite some time, I don't think it ever actually stopped.
And so was there a confrontation about this?
There was. I confronted her with the pictures and asked, why and who and what, and she got very upset with me and tried to take the iPad from me, and in doing so injured my hand.
When you say tried to take it away from you, I mean, can you sort of describe how she tried to take it away?
Well, she was trying to take it away, and I believe to delete these pictures or to cover it up.
Objection,
or
Your
do
Honor,
whatever.
calls for speculation.
All right, I agree with Ms. Waltrip there.
Okay.
All right, let's not guess.
I either way, in trying to remove the iPad from me, she scratched my hand pretty bad.
Permission to approach the witness, Judge?
Yes, permission to approach.
Josh, I'm going to show you a picture. We'll call this defendant's exhibit number 1. Have you seen this picture before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you tell the judge what it is?
It's evidence of her scratching my hand in the attempt to take the iPad.
Is it a picture of the bloody hand after this incident?
Sir.
Okay. Is it a fair and accurate depiction of the bloody hand after this incident?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Judge, I'll move to tender defendant's exhibit number 1 into evidence.
Any objections, Ms. Waltrip?
No, Your Honor.
All right,
So I got the right D1 on the back.
so it
So Joshua, you found out that basically she was being unfaithful to you. Did you stay with her after this?
I did.
Why?
I felt I had an investment and I thought that was something that she could change, and she agreed to change.
Did she change?
No.
When was the next time? Did she attack you again after this incident?
Yes.
Where were you when this subsequent attack happened?
In the driveway.
And why did she attack you?
I had found even more proof that she was still conversing with this person. I approached her with it and let her know that I was going to contact Miss Ashley Bingham, who is Tom Babb's now wife, because she had no idea. Casey got very upset. She told me I was going to ruin Tom's life and that I couldn't do that. So she goes out to her car. I proceed out to the driveway and get in the passenger seat with her, and proceed to call Miss Ashley. In doing so, she asked me to exit the vehicle. I obliged her, and as soon as I get 1 foot on the ground with the door open, she puts the car in reverse on a hill on our driveway is very steep, about, I don't know, 40-degree grade. And she floors it with me only having 1 foot out the door. And I threw myself away from the car in order to not get run over.
So let me make sure I understand. The gentleman that Ms. Behringer was, the other gentleman that Ms. Behringer was with, he was married.
Yes.
And you were going to tell his wife what he was doing?
Yes, I did.
And this was in response to you telling Casey that you were going to tell his wife?
Yes,
Now, you guys still stayed together after this incident, right?
yes, we did.
And in fact, you two went to Florida again to see her mother and stay in Panama City.
Sir, for a week of 4th of July.
So that would be the week of 4th of July, 2020.
Yes, sir.
Now, Josh, I want to back up to the iPad incident. There's an allegation that you threw Casey's iPad at her. Is there any merit to that?
No merit to that at all. That's false.
The iPad incident, there's an allegation that you threw her against the wall over this. Is there any merit to that?
Absolutely not.
There's also an allegation that you held a gun to her head over this. Is there any merit to that?
Absolutely not.
There's an allegation that sometime in September of 2020 that you threw Miss Behringer down the stairs. Is there any merit to that?
That's completely false.
Do you have any idea what incident she might be referring to from September 2020?
I can't recall any incident that she would be referring to. In fact, that she moved out of the house that same month.
When did things finally end between you two?
Very soon after, maybe officially the beginning of October.
October 2020?
Yes, beginning to middle of October.
You had any contact with her since?
I've had zero contact with her since.
I have no further questions.
Ms. Waldrop Cross?
Yes, Judge.
Yeah. And they won't be able to hear you there, I don't think, unless is your microphone working?
It is, Judge.
Can you hear Ms. Waldrop? Howard?
We can hear it through your mic,
I-
Judge.
I can't tell
Oh, you
yet. Because she hasn't. Earlier I could hear her, so I think so.
All right, thank you, just making sure.
Okay.
Mr. Turner, you testified that you and Casey had plans to fly to Georgia on March 14, 2019, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And from there, it's true that you and Casey had planned to drive to Savannah to see your family?
Yes, ma'am.
And from there, you guys were going to go to Panama to see her mother, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
But before you could start your trip, you had to wait for Casey to get off from work. Isn't that correct?
I don't recall that information, but yes, that makes sense.
Did Casey work that day?
I don't, this is 4.5 years ago. I would assume that she probably did work that day based on what time we flew in.
Okay, so she was working at the time, during the time.
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
All right, I agree, please continue.
Well, you were upset that Casey was running late that day, weren't you, Mr. Turner?
I was not upset that Casey was running late, although Casey ran late every day.
And you called Casey names and told her she was selfish for putting work before you, didn't you?
I wouldn't call names, but we had an ongoing issue about how much time she put work before everything else.
So it upset you that she was putting work before you.
I wouldn't say it upset me. Again, it was something that occurred a lot.
And isn't it true that you were drinking on the plane ride down to Atlanta?
We both had a beer on the plane, yes.
I'm asking, is it true that you were drinking on the plane ride to Atlanta?
Objection, Your Honor, asked and answered.
Answer the question, sir.
Yes, I had a beer.
And isn't it true that Casey stopped talking to you in the airport because you were drunk and you were in a bad mood?
That is not true.
And isn't it true that because of your bad mood, she decided that she would just go to see her mom and forego seeing your mom and sister in Savannah?
No, that's not true.
And isn't it true that she took an Uber or a Lyft to the hotel without you?
No, that's not true.
And isn't it true that you called Casey and told her that you were going to hurt yourself if she didn't tell you where it was that she was?
I did not. That is not true.
And isn't it true that Casey only told you to come to the hotel so that you wouldn't hurt yourself?
No, that is not true.
And isn't it true that throughout this relationship, you played on Casey's emotions?
Absolutely not.
And isn't it true that when you got to the hotel, you were upset because you did not like the hotel?
Well, it was because we were overbooked at the first hotel. So yes, after the rental car issue and then the overbooking of a hotel, naturally anybody would be upset about that.
But you didn't like the location of the hotel. Isn't that true?
I don't recall it being a problem. It's the location. It didn't matter. It was just the stress of getting there.
And isn't it true that once you finally got into the hotel room, you continued to scream and yell at Casey and threaten to harm yourself?
That is not true.
And isn't it true that you went to the balcony and threatened to jump off of it?
That's absolutely not true.
And isn't it true that you were kicking and pounding the bedroom door until Casey finally opened it?
It's not true.
And isn't it true that Casey only opened the door so you wouldn't disturb the other guests in the hotel?
That's not true.
And isn't it true that you pushed Casey?
That is not true.
Isn't it true that you spit on Casey?
Absolutely not true.
And isn't it true that you picked Casey up and then slammed her into the bed?
That is not true.
And isn't it true that you broke the headboard of the bed with Casey's head?
No,
And isn't it true, Mr. Turner, that you blamed Casey for the marks that you left on her arms and her face?
no,
Isn't it true that you shook her so hard that you left visible injury?
that is not true.
And isn't it true that Casey was bleeding from her nose as well as her ear?
She was bleeding from her nose, I recall.
And it's true that you caused that bloody nose, didn't you, Mr. Turner?
I would agree that I would argue that she caused that bloody nose.
But you didn't know that there was a security guard who came and saw Casey pick herself up from the floor. Did you know that?
That's not true.
Okay. And isn't it true that you told Casey to go into the bathroom and hide when the police came knocking at the door?
Absolutely not.
And isn't it true that you blamed Casey for what you did that night?
No,
And isn't it true that you didn't sustain any injuries on March 14th, 2019?
other than scratches, no,
Well, you didn't show any visible injuries to the officer.
I
did you?
wasn't asked.
Isn't it true that you never told Officer Smith that Casey hit you?
Well, of course I lied for her. She asked me to.
And isn't it true, Mr. Turner, that you were the one who initiated the violent physical contact with Casey that night?
That is not true.
Mr. Turner, you testified that Casey was apologetic to you after jumping on you and that she did not want to get in trouble, correct?
She did. She did.
And that she asked you to lie,
She did.
but you didn't call the police that day. And the police hadn't showed up at that point, correct?
I'm sorry.
The police hadn't showed up at that point that you were,
She asked me to lie when they showed up.
that's not what you testified to just now.
I'm sorry.
You testified that she asked you to lie. And it was later that police showed
That's
up.
not what I said.
You did not call the police that night, correct?
I did not call the police.
So you didn't even know that they were coming.
I didn't know they were coming.
Okay.
I would have to assume that based on her argument after she screamed, she screamed, you hit me, that there were people coming.
Isn't it true that a couple of months after this incident, you told Casey that you had gone to therapy and you were all better?
I don't recall telling her that. That's not true.
And isn't it true that you showed up to Miss Behringer's place of work and you were so upset and made a scene that her bosses had to intervene?
That's not true. I showed up to her work because we had plans to go to a Red Sox game and she wasn't supposed to work that day. We were going to be late to the game. I came to her work to ask her when she was going to leave. I never made it inside. We talked outside and no one ever intervened. I left on my own accord.
Was that another instance where she was putting her work before you, Mr. Turner?
It wasn't that it was before me, it was that we had plans to go somewhere and she wasn't even supposed to be at work that day.
And that upset you, didn't it?
It didn't make me happy.
And isn't it true that on or about the time of June, July of 2020, you got enraged?
Judge, I'm going to object. The state sent me a notice of intent to admit subsequent acts. And most of these are not in that notice of intent. So
I'm gonna allow it.
Your Honor, and I will point out that he did
I'm
look
gonna,
this up and bring it up on direct.
I'm gonna allow it.
Thank you,
Yes.
Judge. Isn't it true that about June or July 2020, you put a gun to Miss Behringer's head
That's
and held her up against the wall? Isn't that correct?
Absolutely not true.
But you own a firearm, don't you?
I do.
And isn't it true that also around, in that same incident, you punched the wall besides Casey as you had her up against it?
No,
And isn't it true that the hand shown in this picture, that is defense exhibit number 1, that's from you punching the wall that day, correct?
no, it's not.
And isn't it true that in early September of 2020, you drug Casey down the stairs and tried to throw her out?
I'm sorry.
Isn't it true that in September of 2020, you threw Casey down the, you dragged Casey down the stairs and tried to put her out?
It's absolutely not true.
And isn't it true that also in July 2020, June, July 2020, you got into a verbal argument with Casey and threw an iPad at her?
That's not true.
Mr. Turner, isn't it true that throughout this 2-year relationship, you were controlling of Miss Behringer?
That is not true.
Isn't it true that you were manipulating, excuse me, Miss Behringer?
That is not true.
And isn't it true that you had anger issues that you just could not control?
That is not true.
And isn't it true, Mr. Turner, that Miss Behringer finally got the courage to leave you in September of 2020?
That is not true. It worked the other way around.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right. Any brief redirect, Mr. Cornell, or
I do, Judge.
very briefly?
Sure,
Let's-
Judge.
then let's allow this witness to rest. Go ahead.
Joshua, the prosecutor said in her opening, and she was asking you on cross-examination about a headboard. Now, in the hotel room in March of 2019, the bed we're talking about was a fold-out couch, wasn't it?
Correct.
Okay. So, Joshua, did that fold-out couch have a headboard?
Did not.
Joshua, after Corporal Leary put you in handcuffs outside the room, do you remember him talking about the marks on Miss Behringer?
I remember him saying something to, I think, Sergeant Smith about the marks.
Did you offer to show Corporal Leary the marks that were on you?
I don't remember if I offered or not. I don't think I did.
Joshua, would it help if I refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Because I'm on mute. Right, Judge, it looks like I'm on mute.
Okay, I'm gonna, there's that echo. I'm gonna mute myself for a moment, but the problem is no one's gonna be able to hear anything out there.
If you mute yourself and he screen shares, people should still be able to hear the audio who's on the Zoom.
Uh,
It's just if someone
But
wants to
if one is objecting, no one will be able to hear it, is the problem. Okay, so if you plan to object, I guess we'll have to pause, put the objection on the record. Quite confusing, but okay. Ready?
Really?
I don't know. She's a light skinned female. She got.
Did you hear that, Joshua? You,
Excuse me, I can't hear anything. Everybody's muted.
This is not ideal. Okay,
No, no, I can't hear anything.
I can. Okay, if you'll take yourself off the audio just for a second. Okay, go ahead. Do we need to play it again? I heard it.
I don't need to hear the video. I just,
I know you don't, Ms. Howard. Go ahead.
can you hear me now?
now I can hear you.
Joshua, did you offer to show Corporal Leary marks on your body? And did he take you up on that offer?
Mr. Cornell, I'm sorry. Can you lift up your mic and turn off your, disconnect from the audio? That echo up here is really frustrating. Thank you. Just leave audio, and if you need to go back on, that's fine.
Judge, I've got
mute yourself.
No, mute isn't gonna work.
There
You
it
have
is.
to leave the audio. Like you click on the microphone.
Is that better?
Yes. All right, go.
And did Corporal Leary take you up on that offer?
Sure.
Joshua, I think you indicated on direct examination that you had moved into Casey's, the two of you had moved in together in Casey's mother's house. Is that right?
Yes, sir. A house that she owned.
Okay. And so after, I guess, the summer of 2020, did you move out of that house?
I did eventually move out of the house, yes, in October.
Okay.
Hold on one second. Ms. Howard, there's a concern?
When he said, did Corporal Leary take you up on the offer? I don't know what happened before that. So I don't have on the record whatever.
We repeated it. I don't think there was anything missing. Is there?
I'll ask the question again, Judge.
Okay.
Joshua, did you offer to show Corporal Leary your injuries at the scene? Okay, and did he take you up on that offer?
He did not.
All right. So Joshua, when you moved out of the house that you and Miss Berenger were residing in October, approximately October of 2020, who left who?
I left her.
I have no further questions, Judge.
All right. Any brief recross, Ms. Waldrop? No. All right. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you mixing. Do you have any additional witnesses, Mr. Cornell?
No additional witnesses, Judge.
All right, Ms. Waldrop, do you wish to call any witnesses in reference to this motion?
Yes, Your Honor, the state would call Casey Behringer.
All right. If we could bring Ms. Behringer in and have her sworn, please.
Judge, I think I'm going to be doing this a lot with these videos. I have a feeling, and I think probably the best way to do it is going to be to approach the witness with my laptop and to play it for him like that.
I don't know if that, we could try, but this doesn't work well in here.
Want to raise your right hand? State your name for the court.
My name is Casey Lee Behringer.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony that you give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, ma'am.
Put your hands down.
Good morning, Ms. Behringer. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. What is it that you do for a living, Ms. Behringer?
So I work at a Volkswagen dealership that my grandfather actually built and opened in the 60s. It's no longer in my family anymore, but grown up there, worked there for the last almost 8 years now.
Okay. And where is it you reside?
I live in Alton Bay, New Hampshire.
Okay. And do you know the defendant, Joshua Turner?
I do.
Okay. And how is it that you know Mr. Turner?
We previously were in a relationship together.
Okay. And how long have you known the defendant?
March 5th, 2018. Was the first time that I met him.
Okay. And you stated that you all dated?
Correct.
Okay. And how long did you date?
Off and on for about a few years.
Okay. And do you have any children together?
No.
Okay. And on March 14th, 2019, what was your relationship to the defendant?
We were currently dating.
Okay. And did you live together at that time?
No, we did not.
Okay. When did you begin living together, or did you?
So May 2020.
Okay. And in May 2020, where did you live with the defendant?
70 Pleasant Valley Road in Wolfboro, New Hampshire, at my mother's house.
Okay. And did anyone else reside at that location with you?
Yes, we had a long-term tenant in the in-law apartment named Donna Babkirk.
Okay. And I want to bring your attention back to March 14th of 2019. Do you recall an incident that occurred at a Holiday Inn here in the Atlanta area?
I do.
Okay. And the location of that Holiday Inn, is it 1380 Virginia Avenue?
Sounds correct, yes.
Okay. And is that in Fulton County?
Yes.
Okay. And was anyone else present with you when this incident occurred?
The defendant.
Okay. Can you tell the court, please, what, well, first let's talk about that particular day and the events leading up to it. Tell the court a little bit about what you were here for in Atlanta and what was going on earlier that day.
So
I'll object, Judge. It calls for narrative.
I'm gonna allow it, but Ms. Waldrop, if you would give her some framework and guidance, all right?
Yes. Ms. Behringer, on that day, had you and the defendant flown down to Atlanta?
correct.
Okay. And what were you coming to Atlanta for?
We were stopping in Atlanta. We were going to get a rental car, drive down to Savannah for a couple of days, and then go down to Panama City Beach to see my mother.
Okay. And did you work that day?
I did.
Okay. And what were your hours?
So at that point, it was 8:30 to 7 p.m.
Okay.
However, I did request to get out a couple hours early so that we could make a flight and I could get a little bit extra vacation.
Okay. And what time were you scheduled to leave out to Atlanta?
5 o'clock.
Okay. Does your work often keep you there longer than you anticipate?
It depends. It's a customer service industry. So if a customer is at the dealership at closing time, or if I'm currently working with a customer we don't just kick them out and say, bye, see you later.
Okay. And on March 14th of 2019, were you running a little late that day?
I was doing a delivery on a new vehicle with a customer, and it took a little bit longer than it was scheduled to in the finance office and the whole process. So I'll stay a little bit late.
And what was the defendant's mood?
Very upset. He came and picked me up from work. Supposed to leave, like I said, at 5. He didn't get out of there until 5:30. Very upset with me. Screamed at me the entire way to the airport.
Okay. And when you say that he screamed at you on the way to the airport, what were the things that he was saying?
I was very selfish and I should have known better and shouldn't have taken that extra time at work. I was ruining his vacation, ruining his trip, putting work first, like always.
Okay. And did his mood continue?
Yes, it did.
Okay. What about the plane ride? Tell me about that and his mood.
Plane ride, we were on separate aisle seats. He was very nasty to me during the plane. We didn't communicate much. He was drinking heavily, had quite a few beers. I only had one. He was also drinking a lot of Jack Daniels as well.
Okay. And when you say he was very nasty to you, what were some of the things he was doing or saying?
I'm selfish. I care about everything else, myself more than him. It's all my fault that this vacation is getting ruined because we were late. I don't feel comfortable saying some of the words that he called me. I don't use that language. I don't care to repeat it.
Okay. Is it safe to say he called you names?
Yes.
Vulgar names.
Very vulgar names.
Okay. And did the defendant drink often?
Yes.
And did alcohol affect the defendant's mood on
A lot of the times, yes.
So you finally land in Atlanta. What happens when you get to the airport?
So when we got to the airport, he was still in a horrible mood and basically telling me that I wasn't invited to go to Savannah with him anymore. And I agreed and said, that's totally understandable. I will go right down to see my mother. We got to the rental car place. He was having issues with his credit card, screamed at me out of frustration, screamed at the clerk with Enterprise. And I tried to walk away.
At some point, did he spit on you?
Yes.
Was that at the airport?
Yes, that happened quite a bit.
Okay. What did you do next when you said you walked away?
So when I walked away, this was, after midnight. I tried to get an Uber. There were no Ubers, so I was told by somebody that Lyft worked, so I got a Lyft. Was planning on going to check into the hotel that I personally booked with my Hilton Honors account information, and was just going to continue on vacation by myself.
Okay, and you were going to go to Panama from there, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So you were going to forego going to Savannah to see his family, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And when you got to the Hilton, what happened?
So because it was so late at night, they were overbooked, which does happen quite a bit, especially due to the time that I checked in. A lot of times they walk customers or guests to a neighboring hotel. I used to work in the hospitality industry, so I know that that is a very common practice, and I had no issue with that whatsoever.
Okay. So what hotel did you end up checking into?
So the shuttle driver brought me to the Holiday Inn.
Okay. And after leaving the airport and getting to the hotel, did you hear from the defendant at all?
He tried to call me a few times, sent text. He was very intoxicated and was saying he was driving around.
Okay. What happened once you got into the room?
So got into the room, it was a 1-bedroom suite. So I brought all of my things into a separate bedroom, locked the door. Told him that rather than driving around intoxicated and hurting himself or others, he could stay in the pullout sofa, propped the door open, went down to the front desk, got the pullout set up, made the bed for him, told him he can do that. I wasn't speaking to him, wasn't going to interact with him. I was just going to go to bed, and he had a place to sleep, so he would not, again, hurt himself or others.
So at some point, you all had a communication about him coming to the room. is that
Yes, that's correct.
correct? Okay. Tell us about that communication.
So I can't remember if it was a text or a phone call, but that's when he was telling me that he was driving around in what he claimed is not a nice area, because apparently that's also where I messed up and got a hotel that was in a non-desirable place. I'm not from here, so I don't know. And again, I told him that he had a place to stay, but I was not going to interact with him, just so he didn't hurt himself or others.
Did he specifically say to you that he was going to hurt himself?
Yes, he would frequently do that, say that he was going to hurt himself, commit suicide. I did that to him. It was all my fault to make him feel that way.
Okay. So you stated that you went down, you got a sofa bed or a rolling bed of some sort?
Yeah, I got a pullout set up for the pullout.
So you got that all set up, and what happened next?
Then locked the door to the bedroom, tried to go to sleep, and woke up to banging and trying to knock down the bedroom door and screaming from the defendant.
And when you say he's screaming at you, what is he saying?
Calling me some very vulgar names, telling me that he was going to commit suicide, he was going to hurt himself, he needed to go in and talk to me, and I just told him no.
Okay. And did he at some point go out on the balcony?
Yes, so the banging and kicking on the door got so bad that I opened it because I didn't want him to break the door. He barged into the room, took my purse that he had bought for me, emptied out all the contents everywhere, opened the hotel balcony, stood on the edge, and said he was going to jump off.
Okay. And was this banging and pounding and screaming and yelling, was it loud enough to disturb other guests?
Probably. It wasn't quiet.
Okay. Were you concerned that it may disturb
Yes.
other guests? Okay. What happens after did he come back into the room from the balcony?
Yes, so I was able to convince him to come inside, grabbed his arm, pulled him inside, and then he escalated from there.
Okay. And when you say he escalated from there, what happened?
That was when the shaking started, the choking, the spitting at me again, yelling at my face. He was trying to kick me out and then tried to leave. And again, I told him to just calm down. I wasn't going to interact with him, to just sleep it off. I was going to stay and sleep, and everything was over after that.
Okay. And during the course of that entire interaction and encounter, at some point, did he pick you up?
Objection leading.
He did.
Just hold.
Your response, why don't you rephrase that question, Ms. Waldrop?
Yes, Judge. During this entire encounter, can you describe, did you sustain any injuries from the defendant?
Yes, I did.
How did you get the injuries that you sustained?
So at one point he did pick me up.
Is this officer one of our witnesses? Yes. or
No, that's my officer.
Okay, just checking. I'm just
Yeah,
making
no,
sure.
I'm sorry.
All right, please continue. Go ahead.
Sustain your injuries, Ms. Doja?
So at one point he picked me up, slammed me on the bed, said he was going to give me a stone cold stunner. I have no idea what that means, but that's when my head hit the bed frame.
Okay,
And-
so your head hit the frame
Yeah,
and did anything break?
the sofa bed did.
Okay, so your head didn't break the headboard, it broke the frame.
It broke the frame, correct? Yeah, it was my head, my ear.
Okay. And you stated that you suffered injuries from this. What were those injuries?
So one point he knocked me in the face as well. I had a bloody nose, scratches on my arms, my throat.
Do you recall whether your ear was bleeding?
Yes, my ear, I was wearing, actually, I remember the earrings that I was wearing, they were dark blue sapphire studs. And one of them punctured the back of my neck and was bleeding and yeah, hurt really bad.
Were you aware that a guest at the hotel had called down to the front desk?
I was not, no,
Were you aware that the front desk had contacted police?
I was not.
Okay. Did cops eventually respond to the scene?
They did, yes.
Okay. And did the defendant tell you anything when cops arrived?
That I messed up, it was all my fault, I'm an idiot for doing this. He's going to get in trouble, and told me to get into the bathroom and he would take care of it.
Okay. Why did he tell you to go to the bathroom?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
All right, sustained.
Do you believe that he was trying to hide you from the police?
Objection, Your Honor, speculation.
I'm asking what she believes.
We'll allow that one. Go ahead, you can answer the question.
Yes, I do. I had a washcloth. Sorry. I was bleeding and it was very obvious that I was crying. Yeah, told me to go away, bathroom.
Were you aware that a security guard had seen you pick yourself up from the floor, get up from the floor?
No,
Okay.
I would a lot of times curl up into a ball when he would get into these angry rages and just to protect myself. And
Okay. And at some point, did you speak with the officers?
I did, yes.
Okay. Now, you didn't initially tell them the truth of what happened, is that correct?
Correct.
What did you tell the officer?
So I told him that I had just gotten a bloody nose and it was fine. And I was okay
Why did you do that?
because he told me that he would get in trouble if I told the truth.
Okay. At some point, were you and the defendant separated when you were speaking to officers?
Yes, they pulled him outside, sat me down and talked to me directly.
Okay. And at that point, did you tell the officer what really happened?
At that point, yes, I felt comfortable with him being out of the room and alone, and it was able to actually admit.
Okay. Now, you didn't call 911, did you, Casey?
No, I did not.
Why not?
Honestly, I was terrified and ashamed, and honestly was convinced that all of this was my fault because of how he treated me and the things he told me. And I unfortunately believed him.
Okay. And how long did this physical assault last within the room?
I don't remember the specifics, but it was probably half an hour, 45 minutes, maybe closer to an hour.
Okay.
I don't know.
And as he assaulted you, did you do anything in reaction to that?
Crying, I yelled, "Don't hit me, don't hurt me," or "You're hurting me." Telling him to stop and to just leave me alone.
Were you aware that a guest heard a female voice say, "Why did you?"
Objection, Your Honor, this is speculation.
I'm gonna allow it. You can answer the question.
I did read the police report, and I did hear that the person in the room, or read that the person in the room overheard that, and that was their cause to call the police.
But you didn't know that at the time.
No,
Ms. Barringer, did you ever strike, hit, or initiate physical contact with the defendant?
never,
Did you ever jump on the defendant as he was trying to leave the room?
never.
Okay.
If anything, I was preventing him from trying to get him to not leave so that he wouldn't go driving around intoxicated and
Okay. But you never laid hands on him in order to
no,
do that. Is that
no,
correct?
that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Did you show the injuries that you sustained to the officers?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Since the incident, had you talked to the defendant about what happened that particular day?
Yes, he told me that again, it was all my fault. I was responsible, that he went to jail when it should have been me, and that I should be paying for his legal fees and his bail and all of the inconveniences.
Okay. Did the defendant have any injuries, Ms. Barringer?
Not that I know of.
Were you ever cited or arrested for any offense?
Never.
Was the defendant?
He was, yes.
Describe the relationship with the defendant over those 2 years.
It's very manipulative, very isolating. I was not allowed to have friends. I was taken away from my family, not encouraged to have any relationship with my family. Work was always a big issue, where I was the selfish person who put that before anything else. I didn't do every single thing that he asked me to or wanted me to do.
Would you describe it as controlling?
Very, very, very.
Was March 14th, 2019, the only time that a physical incident occurred, a physical incident of violence between you and the defendant?
No, that was just the only time that police were involved.
Were there prior occasions?
Yes.
Were there subsequent occasions?
Yes, both.
Did you call the police on any of those occasions?
I did not, unfortunately.
Why not, Casey?
I was scared and ashamed, and the defendant had me convinced that I brought it upon myself. Also, where I live, it's a very small town. I've grown up there. I've lived there my whole life. It's a very shameful thing to admit that you're the victim of domestic abuse, and I was too ashamed to call the police, too scared to call the police. I didn't want everybody knowing, tried to hide it, and just was very intimidated.
Okay. What about the incident that occurred on or about June, July of 2020?
So that was when I was downstairs doing dishes, cleaning up the kitchen. He apparently had found my iPad upstairs in my bedroom and found out my passcode, broken into it, and started coming down screaming at me certain things. I tried to leave and he wouldn't let me.
At some point during that incident, did the defendant sustain an injury to his hand?
Yes, when he punched the wall next to my head in our bedroom.
I'm going to show you Defense's Exhibit 1. May I approach?
Yes, you may.
Is this from when the defendant punched the wall?
Yes, that's the landing outside of our bedroom.
Was there anything else that the defendant did besides punching the wall occasion?
He held his gun up to my forehead and up to my dog buddy's forehead or head. Told me that I would be lucky if he didn't kill me. And at one point also held a knife up against my throat. Punched the walls. Dragged me down the stairs.
So let's talk about the incident that occurred around September of 2020.
So that I was trying to leave. Wouldn't let me. He basically dragged me down the stairs. Donna, the lady who was renting the apartment, overheard and banged on the wall and yelled, and that's what finally got him to stop. And I was able to leave for good with my dog.
And was that the end of your relationship with Mr. Turner?
Yes.
And did you ever at any point attempt to run Mr. Turner over?
No. So at that point, I had known to keep my keys next to me and within close reach the whole time. So at that point that he's referring to, I grabbed my keys, grabbed my dog, ran out to my car to go to my dad's house. He stood behind my car so I couldn't back up and leave. Slammed his fist on my trunk lid, tried to open the door, but it was locked. Banged on the window, screamed at me, wouldn't let me leave. And eventually I just laid on the horn so that he would leave me alone.
Okay. And eventually, were you able to leave?
I was, eventually.
One more question about the incident on March 14th, 2019. You stated that you didn't know the police had been called, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So did you ever apologize or ask the defendant to lie for you as a result of that incident?
I had nothing to apologize for. I mean, I didn't do anything. If anything, I was sorry that I was late leaving work, and that escalated the whole situation.
Okay. Did you ever ask the defendant to lie to the police about that incident?
No.
Okay. And in fact, you did not even know the police had been called?
I didn't even know.
Okay. Nothing further at this time.
Mr. Cornell, some cross?
Ms. Behringer, I think you told the police that night, the night of March 14th, 2019, that you don't like traveling, right?
Correct.
Did it give you anxiety?
Yes.
Okay. On the night of this incident, you told the police something about getting anxiety when you fly as well, right? Yeah. You said you get nervous if you get anxiety.
Yes, I've been dealing with that my whole life.
Okay. Specifically, you said, I'm terrified of flying, and it gives me panic attacks and it stresses me out. It's been all day. Do you remember that?
I don't recall.
Permission to approach the witness, Judge?
Mission granted. Are we gonna show a video?
Won't be here all day, Judge.
Okay. I'm gonna try to leave myself unmuted. Hopefully that will work. Now I prefer, we're not here all day, so let's try to.
It's definitely something that I probably would have said, again, because I've been dealing with this my whole life. So I know how to handle my stress and how to calm myself down, practice my breathing exercises. But yes, flying does scare me. It always has. I'm 31 years old.
I think she's answered the question.
I would agree, but we'll allow this. Go ahead.
All right.
Quickly.
Approach the witness, Judge. I'm sorry, Judge.
Yes, granted, so granted.
All right, Ms. Behringer, forgive me for invading your space. But the question was, I asked if you said, I'm terrified of flying. It gives me panic attacks and stresses me out. It's been all day.
Okay, so did you say that, Ms. Manager?
So, yeah, I
Okay.
did.
Okay, she
All right.
agreed, she said it, so let's forge ahead.
All right, and then later you told Sergeant Smith. So I have really bad anxiety. There are times when I can feel myself getting into a panic attack. And I know it's happening, and I know there's no logical reason for it. It still happens. It's just my chemical imbalance in my brain. I see my doctor for it. I'm prescribed stuff for it. Do you remember saying that to Sergeant Smith?
Yeah, I've been dealing with that my whole life. It is something that I commonly will volunteer information to. I have no shame in that whatsoever.
Okay, so then you also tell Sergeant Smith, first you say, I swear he's bipolar. So you're referring to Mr. Turner here, right?
I guess so.
Like I was explaining earlier, I get panic attacks. I know I'm getting a panic attack and for no logical reason, but I can't stop myself from getting it. Did you tell that to Sergeant Smith?
Correct. That is the definition of a panic and anxiety disorder.
All right, and you told the police, you told Sergeant Smith that you're seeing a doctor for this.
Correct. I have been my entire life.
And you told Sergeant Smith that you're taking Adderall, Xanax,
Objection,
and Prozac.
we've already gone over
The
that
same.
with respect to the
Same.
Are you taking medication for these problems, Ms. Behringer?
objection, Judge, relevance.
Let's sustain, let's keep going.
Ms. Behringer, did you have a panic attack on March 14th, 2019?
Yes.
And there's a lot that led up to that, right?
Yes.
Okay, for starters, you hate flying,
Yes.
you hate traveling,
Yes.
and you two flew into Hartsfield that night, right?
Yes.
Justin had a reservation for a rental car with Hertz, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then Justin had trouble with his credit or debit card in putting the deposit down on that rental car, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's after midnight because you guys didn't fly in until about midnight, right?
Correct.
And you have to get to your hotel and you may not even be able to get a rental car.
The rental car was on him. I had walked away at that point. The
Okay, so
hotel was in my name.
you just were left him at the rental car counter?
He told me to leave and I did because I did not want to engage with him any further.
He did get the rental car though, right?
I guess so.
Did you ride in the rental car?
No, I never even saw it.
You guys initially, you said you had a hotel reservation, right?
I did in my name and I checked in by myself.
But you told the police that when you got to that hotel, it was overbooked.
Correct. Like I explained earlier, that is a common occurrence, especially due to the late time that we checked in. I had no issue with it whatsoever.
Okay, so when you got to that first hotel, was Joshua there?
No,
So he's just driving around in the rental car and you're at the hotel?
I don't know what he was doing.
And, but then you got directed to another hotel?
Yep, the shuttle driver from the Hilton brought me over to the Holiday Inn. I was an assistant GM for Hilton Properties, so I'm familiar with that procedure and I had no issue with it. It didn't bother me one bit.
So you took a shuttle from the airport to the hotel?
From the Hilton Inn to the Holiday Inn.
Okay. And how did you get to the Hilton Inn?
I took a lift.
And so you're saying that the reservation at that first hotel was your reservation?
Correct. I was a Hilton employee and I have my Hilton Honors info. I was part of my mom's friends and family program because she works for Hilton as well.
And you say it was the Hilton Inn?
It was the Hampton Inn, so which is a
Hampton.
Hilton property.
And which Hampton Inn was it?
It was in East Point. I picked the one closest to the airport. Apparently that's also something I did wrong.
So you got turned away from that hotel and then you get sent to the Holiday Inn, right?
Correct.
And how far is the Holiday Inn from the first hotel?
Right across the street, more or less. Wasn't far.
And it was the Holiday Inn on Virginia Avenue?
Correct.
Any idea what time you got to the hotel?
After midnight.
And how long had you been there when the police arrived?
Probably a couple hours, if that. I was there by myself for most of it.
Okay. Did you unpack?
I got into my PJs and got into bed.
Okay. That's not what I asked. I asked if you unpacked.
Why would I unpack if I'm only staying for a couple hours to sleep?
So is that a no?
Yeah, that's a no.
Okay. You didn't put anything in the closet or in the drawers or anything like that?
No.
Okay. But at some point you started to have a panic attack, right?
I believe we discussed that that had been ongoing all day, as you reminded me that I mentioned.
Okay, so you've been having a panic attack all day?
Asked and answered.
Yes, she's answered that question. Let's move along.
Which of your medications do you take to help with these panic attacks?
Objection, Judge.
Objection sustained. Let's move along.
Judge, if I may,
Already, would you like to approach?
yes, Judge.
Let's come on. We've already talked about this. All right. I think we've conceded that she's admitted that this is an issue.
Judge, on direct examination, prosecutor here just asked her a question about.
Hold on, I'm sorry. We're not muted. This microphone is hot. I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Huh? I'm sorry. Let me mute again. I understand that some parties may need a break. We're gonna get through Ms. Behringer's testimony, then we're gonna take a brief recess, all right? Please continue, Mr. Carnell.
All right, Ms. Behringer, I'm gonna show you another. I'm gonna show you another video here, a still from another video. And I will proffer that this is video footage from the third officer that arrived, Officer Davis. And I just want you to tell me what something in this video is.
And Your Honor, is there a question prior to her watching the video?
Are you admitting the still photo or are you admitting the video footage
Her
itself?
testimony about the video. I'm not-
All right, we agreed that we'd allow the videos to be admitted as a way to refresh her, so perhaps ask her a question first, Mr. Cornell. And then if she's unable to answer, the video footage would be appropriate.
Casey, when the officers arrived, what was all over the bed in the back bedroom?
The contents of my purse that he had dumped out.
Now, Ms. Berenger, do you keep your medication in that purse?
Yes,
Okay. And Ms. Berenger, if you're in the middle of a panic attack, would taking one or more of your medications help with that?
no, I had already done my breathing exercises and I had no reason to take additional medication for no reason.
But the contents of your purse were on the bed, right?
Ask and answer, Judge.
I'll allow her to answer the question briefly.
Yes, they were in my turquoise Dooney and Burke handbag that the defendant had purchased for me for Christmas. And in our arguments, he took the purse, dumped it upside down and said he was taking it with him along with my wallet, which was a Dooney and Burke New England Patriots wallet.
Casey, the police specifically asked you if Josh had hit you and you told them no, right?
Initially, yes, when he was in the room and I was scared of him.
I'm sorry, when he was in the room?
Yes. I have been asked multiple times if the defendant has ever hit me. And like I mentioned earlier, my shame prevented me from telling the truth.
All right, permission to approach the witness, Judge?
All right, permission so granted.
Hey, Casey, this is, I'm gonna play you this video here. First off, is Mr. Turner in the room at this scene?
Objection, Your Honor. Can we see what he's playing?
I feel more comfortable
If, can we put it on the screen? This is the technology issue again.
we can just show
Share
us.
this- Or I'd like to see it too, so if we can share screen,
Sure, Judge.
and then I think I'll have to mute again. All right, so because of the technology issue, what I'm gonna ask, Mr. Cardinal, is that you share, show it, and then tell me when you're ready to speak so that I can turn the audio back on my bench.
And Your Honor, also, just because the videos are being allowed for refreshing recollection, if we could just make sure that a question is asked first before.
Well, you did ask the question. I'm believing that this is understood and noted as well.
All right, everybody can see.
All right.
Berenger, can you see?
I'm going to mute. Ready? Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready to begin, Judge.
All right, I'm gonna mute now.
No, sir. And yes,
Hold on. I'm still muted. Okay, there we go. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, nosebleed, caused by the injury.
Ms. Berenger, is Mr. Turner in the room at this time?
No,
Okay. Did you hear the question that was asked in your response?
if he hit me and I shook my head, the door was open and I saw the defendant out in the hallway.
Oh, okay. So because he's out in the hallway, you said no?
Correct.
But they did ask you if the nosebleed was from him hitting you, and you did say no. You shook your head no, right?
Initially, I did, yes.
Can we take down that share screen too, please? Thank you.
Is it your testimony that later you told the officers that he had hit you?
Yes.
And when was that later?
Little bit after.
A little bit after. So a little bit after this question, you told Sergeant Smith that Mr. Turner had hit you.
Yes.
That's your testimony.
Yeah, when I felt that I was able to actually explain myself and what really happened.
Judge, I'm going to share the screen again and I'm going to continue playing that video.
Question that you're trying to refresh her on, Mr. Carnell?
Judge, just for the, well,
I think she testified that she initially said no, and then at a later point, she changed her story. Are you trying to clarify the timeline in which she changed her story?
I'm sorry, Judge. In fact, Officer Smith asked you twice within about 10 seconds. After you shook your head no, he said, he didn't hit you. And you said, he didn't hit me, and you pointed to the bed. Is that true or false?
I guess true.
All right, so I don't think that video is gonna be necessary. She's saying it's true.
So the first officer that came into the room, do you agree with this, that Sergeant Smith came in and talked to you initially, and then Sergeant Smith left. Corporal Leary came in and talked to you, and then Corporal Leary went outside and arrested Joshua. And then Sergeant Smith came back into the room. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so when Corporal Leary is in the room with you, you tell Corporal Leary, I didn't want him to leave. I tried to make him stay on the couch because I didn't want him to be out on the streets.
Exactly. He was intoxicated driving around and I did not want him to hurt himself or others.
Now, at no point that night did you tell the police he was intoxicated and you didn't want him to hurt other people. Is that accurate?
I guess.
Do you remember telling the police that Joshua was intoxicated?
I told him that he had been drinking on the plane.
Do you remember telling the police that you didn't want him to hurt other people?
Yes, that's the point of him leaving.
Later, you tell Corporal Leary, just a minute later, you tell Corporal Leary again, I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want to be left alone.
I didn't want to be left alone at the airport, but I was.
I'm from New Hampshire. I've never been down here before. He already left me alone at the airport and he was mad about the car thing.
Yeah. I was alone. I was scared. I was 26 at the top.
But on direct examination, when the prosecutor was asking you questions, you told her that he tried to kick you out.
Yeah. Exactly. I don't understand the question, sir.
So then Corporal Leary leaves and arrests Joshua and Sergeant Smith comes back in, right?
Yes.
And that's when you tell Sergeant Smith, he didn't hit me. You point at the bed. He wouldn't give me my key card because I didn't want him to leave. Because then I would have to go down and get it. That's the third time you said you didn't want him to leave, right?
Yes, because he was intoxicated and I didn't want him to hurt himself or others. He was also suicidal before that.
Did you tell the police that he was suicidal?
I don't recall. That had nothing to do with the incident.
A minute and a half later, you tell Sergeant Smith again, so this is the fourth time, I just didn't want to be alone.
Yeah, that Alone as in by myself. I wish I had my sister or my mom or my dad or somebody with me. I just been through a traumatic experience.
Well, this is in reference to Mr. Turner leaving. You didn't want to be left alone, right? This is
No.
the intoxicated guy who tried to kick you out, but you didn't want to be left alone.
Correct. I didn't want to be with him either.
And then at 6 minutes and 20 seconds into the video of Mr. Smith, you say to, or Sergeant Smith, you say, I wouldn't let him leave because I didn't want to be alone. I should have let him leave. I should have. Do you remember that?
If that's what I said, then I should have let him leave and called the police to report an intoxicated driver.
But the important part here, Ms. Behringer, is that you wouldn't let him leave. That's a change. That's a change in what you're saying. That's very specific.
Objection. Is there a question?
Sustained, rephrase.
Do you remember saying that? So I'll play it for you if you don't.
Sure. I said, yes, I did not want him to leave. I did not want him to go out on the streets to hurt himself and others, as I have stated several times.
So Mr. Turner is trying to leave the hotel room. Is that right?
Your Honor, I think we had.
I'll allow it very briefly. Let's move this along, Mr. Cornell.
Yes, to go into his car where he's intoxicated and suicidal.
And you wouldn't let him leave.
I believe that's what I just said several times, yes.
Now, Ms. Behringer, you and Joshua, you guys were not living together at the time of this incident, right?
Correct.
And this was March of 2019, right?
Correct.
But then you guys moved in together?
A little over a year later, we had broken up for a while over the summer.
You two were on your way to visit his sister, and then you were going to go see your mother in Panama City, Florida, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then again, in the summer of 2020, you guys went to see your mother in Panama City again, right?
Correct.
You testified on direct examination that you were encouraged not to have relationships with family now.
Correct.
You remember that?
Yep.
And yet it seems like you had no trouble going to see mom in Panama City now.
Objection. Is there a question?
Rephrase, Mr. Cornell.
Testified on direct examination that you were encouraged not to have a relationship with your family, and yet you took Joshua 2 times to Panama City to see your mother over the course of what, 14 months?
Yes, that's correct. I wanted to go visit my mom.
Now, when you guys were dating, Joshua lived all the way up in Maine, but you had him move into your mother's house in New Hampshire, right? So he moved in with you.
Yeah, it's right across the border. I work closer to Maine than New Hampshire anyway.
So he gave up his place and he moved into your place.
He did not want to pay the rent to stay in Kennebunk for the summer at his current address that he was staying in.
So he gave up his place and moved into your place, right?
He chose to. He did not want to pay the increase in rent for the summer due to the high demand of where we live.
And he's not from that area, but you are, right? He's from Alabama.
Yep.
So he's got no family up there, right?
He doesn't have a relationship with his family that I know of at all.
He has no family in the Maine, New Hampshire area, right?
Correct. So I don't know why he was staying there.
And he's living in Maine, but he moved to New Hampshire to be with you, right?
I didn't make him do that at all. I didn't ask him to do that. That was his choice.
So
My house in Alton, where I was living with my father.
he's living in Maine, but he moves to New Hampshire to be with you, right?
He chose to. He could, I didn't ask him to. He could have found another place to stay in Maine, or he could have chose the increase in rent. He also worked in New Hampshire at the time.
And you let him move in with you in May of 2020. And right about the same time, you have another relationship going on with Mr. Babb. Is that accurate?
That is incorrect.
Objection, relevance, Judge.
I'm sorry, I got distracted by the door. Repeat that question, Mr. Cornell. I know that Ms. Waldrop is objecting. What was the question?
I said that right about the time that Ms. Behringer let Mr. Turner move in with her in New Hampshire, she was having a relationship with Mr. Babb.
And your objection, Ms. Waldrop, was?
Your Honor, not only is it irrelevant to what happened on March 14, 2019, but I don't think anyone ever testified that she was in a relationship with Mr. Babb.
All right, I'm gonna allow it briefly just to see where we're, if Mr. Cornell, I'm gonna warn you, if I feel like this is going too far, we'll end this line of questioning quickly.
Judge,
All right?
Judge, if I may, both parties have filed motions in limine to admit subsequent acts.
And I'm sure we're gonna get to all of that when we get to that motion. We're still on motion one, unless you wanna switch and deal with that one now,
Well,
which I doubt. any
Judge,
of us do.
I thought, I'm sorry, Judge, I thought that's what we were doing, was we were just going ahead with the evidence for both.
Well, we can, we'll go ahead. That might make this go slightly faster, even though.
Your Honor, I'll just say that we set out from the beginning.
Right,
We did
I
motion
understand.
immunity.
I agree.
We've got
We're on the
other
motion.
witnesses, so I'd like to finish with that issue before we go into.
I agree. But if it will keep us from having to call back Ms. Behringer later and go through that again, I don't mind that. So if this line of inquiry will be admitted and used there, and she doesn't have to come back and go through this again. And same for the defendant. I don't have an objection to that, Ms. Waldrop. So let's continue this line of questioning briefly, and hopefully we can just dismiss Ms. Behringer and make it such that Mr. Turner doesn't have to testify again either. All right? And we are going to need to take a break soon. I did promise that we would take 5 minutes. So Mr. Cornell, do you anticipate needing more than 10 minutes or so?
I do, Judge.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and take that brief recess now. When we come back and at the conclusion of Ms. Behringer's testimony, I would like to hear defendant's history. So Ms. Waldrop, if you prepare that for me, if there is a history. All right? Let's take about 5-10 minutes.
Judge,
Yes.
sorry, I need to let you know because you may not have been made aware, but I have a appointment from 12 to 1 today. And I let them know that I couldn't change it, and I put it at 12 to 1, so it would be during lunch. So I take it from the fact that you didn't mention it.
Okay, well, let's keep going then. Let's not take a break then. Let's try to get finished before Ms. Howard has to leave, unfortunately, so.
I can come
Okay,
back.
let's-
I'll be finished at 1 and
I
available.
would hope that we're not all still here through 12 to 1. That's our hope. So let's keep going. Okay. If the defendant needed to step out,
I took care of it for him, Judge.
Okay. If you do need to step out though, Mr. Turner, you can feel free to go, okay? We're gonna continue this line of questioning without Miss Bolton Turner. And go ahead, Mr. Cornell.
Ms. Behringer, do you admit that you were parlance of the day goes, sexting with Mr. Babb.
Okay, no, we're not, I'm gonna sustain that objection. Let's rephrase. All right,
Ms. Berenger, were you sending nude pictures and images? to
Objection,
Mr. Babb?
Judge, to the contents of anything that was found on the
sustained,
iPad.
sustained.
Judge, are we gonna be able to cover this later with the motions in limine? Because, you know, this is what.
Well,
leads-
let's first ask her, just ask her about the message, if she was sending something at all. Let's go there first, all right?
Were you in a relationship with Mr. Babb?
No,
Were you sending text messages to Mr. Babb?
before I ever met the defendant. He was my friend.
Did you and Mr. Babb talk about being more than friends?
Before I ever met the defendant.
Did you and Mr. Turner have an argument about Mr. Babb?
Yes,
And was that argument, the first argument you had about Mr. Babb,
no,
was it related to your iPad?
yes, he had gone through my phone and my iPad, found previous text messages from before when I met him. And I was not allowed to be friends with him anymore. He did not live anywhere near me.
Did you try to take your iPad away from Joshua when he found these previous text messages?
Of course, it was my iPad that I purchased. I did not give him permission to go into my iPad.
Did you want to prevent him from seeing the extent of what you had been sending to Mr. Babb?
I don't see why that's irrelevant or anybody else's business other than my own. I didn't give him permission to go through my phone. I don't give anybody permission to go through my phone.
When you tried to take your iPad away, were you trying to prevent him from seeing the extent of what you had messaged Mr.
Objection,
Babb?
she's just answered that question, Judge.
You didn't answer the question, Judge.
No, it was,
Answer the question, Ms. Berenger.
no, I was not.
But you two stayed together after this iPad incident, right?
Yes,
Did you promise Joshua that you would stop talking to Mr. Babb?
yes, and I did.
But you continued talking to Mr. Babb, right?
No, I did not.
So at some point, did Mr. Turner, let me back up. Mr. Babb at the time was married, right?
He is married now. When we were friends, he was not married. Which again was 2 years before I met the defendant.
But oddly, Joshua threatened to tell Mr. Babb's wife about your relationship with him. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay. So even though, as you say, you're not in a relationship with Mr. Babb in 2020, Joshua threatens to tell Mr. Babb's wife that you are in a relationship with Mr. Babb. Is that what you're saying?
yes, and it's neither his place nor business to do that to anybody else, especially something that's not true.
And in fact, you saw that Joshua had sent an email or text message to Mr. Babb's wife, right?
No,
So you never saw a text message or
Never.
email?
never.
And Joshua threatened to call Mr. Babb's wife in your presence. Do you remember that?
Yes,
Okay. And you were a little upset when Joshua threatened to call Mr. Babb's wife, right?
yeah, why would you want to do that to somebody?
In fact, you told Joshua that you were not going to let him, and Joshua, ruin Mr. Babb's life. Is that right?
It's not his place to insert himself into somebody else's relationship that they don't know, that I don't even know.
What I'm asking is, did you tell Joshua that you were not going to let him ruin Mr. Babb's life?
No.
I have a motion in the meeting about the photos. I have this one. I don't have the one that I don't have that one.
Now, Ms. Behringer, on direct examination, you said something about prior occasions. And I think what you meant by that was prior to March of 2020. Do you remember that?
Yes. He'd given me black eyes, had hit me before. I have pictures.
Oh, you have pictures. Isn't it true, Ms. Behringer, that that officer, the female officer that came into the room said, she asked you, she said, as an adult, in the year you've known him, do you know if he has a history as an adult? She was referring to a history of violence. And you shook your head no and said, I've known him a year, not to my knowledge. Do you remember that?
I don't know what history. I've only known him a year, like I said. I don't know what history she was referring to. I don't know what she was implying.
You didn't know what she was implying, but you still answered the question?
She asked if I knew his history, and I said no, because I have not known him my entire life. I have not known him his entire life.
Ms. Behringer, you indicated that, I guess, this house that you lived in with Joshua in 2020, that you guys have a long-term tenant in the in-law suite or something like that?
Yes, that's correct.
What's the name of that tenant?
Name is Donna Babkirk.
Donna Babkirk?
Correct.
And is Miss Babkirk, is she a witness to any of the allegations you've made against Joshua here today?
She was on the other side of the wall. And she heard everything and confided in me that she had been in an abusive relationship with her ex-husband and that I should take care of myself and leave, which I ultimately ended up doing.
You left your own house?
Yeah, to go back to live at my dad's house, which is my permanent residence. 5 minutes down the road.
Now, you indicated on direct examination that Mr. Turner told you that you weren't invited to go to Savannah with him that night, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Turner, again, at that point is indicating that he's trying to get away from you. Does that sound fair?
Yeah, and I was totally fine with it. I didn't want to go to Savannah either. All I wanted to do was go see my mom, who I hadn't seen in a while. She's my best friend.
Now, Ms. Behringer, you indicated on direct examination that you locked the door to the bedroom and tried to go to sleep.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, can you tell me what does that look like? What does it look like? You trying to go to sleep, what does that look like?
That looks like me locking the door, putting on my PJs, getting into bed, plugging my phone in, setting an alarm for in the morning, and going to sleep because it had been a long day. And as you so kindly pointed out earlier, I admitted that I was having some anxiety about traveling. So all I wanted to do is just go to sleep and leave it at that. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Well, Ms. Behringer, specifically what I was referring to was trying to go to sleep that night. So you said that you locked the door to the bedroom and tried to go to sleep that night. This was when you said Joshua, who indicated that he didn't want to be around you, was banging on the door.
Yes,
Okay, so,
he didn't have to stay. He didn't have to be there. All I wanted to do was be by myself and go to sleep.
okay. So again, could you tell me, after you locked the door and you tried to go to sleep, what did you do?
Objection, Judge. I believe this has been asked and answered as well.
Answer very quickly, Ms. Behringer.
I tried to go to sleep.
Did you get in the bed?
Yes,
Okay. And then I think you said that it was after that, he's banging on the door, you let him in, and then he goes out on the balcony. Is that right?
yes,
Okay. You also indicated, sort of in closing on direct examination, that you never initiated physical contact with Mr. Turner.
correct.
Okay, but earlier in your testimony on direct examination, you indicated that you grabbed his arm and pulled him back in off the balcony.
I didn't initiate that.
Did he ask you to grab his arm and pull him in off the balcony?
No. So if that's the contact that you were referring to, then yes, I tried to save his life.
You also said something about that he was trying to kick you out of the room.
Again, he was intoxicated. I don't know what was going through his mind. I just wanted to remove myself from the situation, as I mentioned earlier, and go to sleep. And again, remove myself from the situation.
So I asked you about 5 instances where you told the officers that you didn't want him to leave.
Correct. And I had mentioned that it was because he was intoxicated and I was worried for his safety as well as safety of the public. You could have been out in your car and he could have hit you and ended your life.
And there's also this incident that you just testified to where he's out on the balcony. You pull him back in off the balcony, right?
Grabbed his sweatshirt arm or the arm of his sweatshirt to bring him off the
But
balcony.
he's also at the same time, he's trying to kick you out.
Again, he's intoxicated. I don't understand his reasoning either. I've never laid a hand on anybody.
Now, this incident where you say that he dumped the contents of your purse out.
Mhm.
This happened after you locked him out of the room. Because you said that you pulled him in off the balcony and then he came in and he dumped the contents of your purse out, right?
Yes, the balcony was off the bedroom. My purse was in the bedroom.
Okay.
And the question that you're refreshing her on, Mr. Cornell?
I actually, this is impeachment, Judge. I just need to show her something from the video.
All right, Mr. Cornell, I think she's answered the question. If you'd like to, discuss those videos afterwards with me. But I think she's answered the question in a manner. So unless you're intending to show that she said something inconsistent?
I'm attempting to show something inconsistent, Judge.
Ms. Waldrop?
Your Honor, I agree. I think she's asked and answered the question.
Answer the
multiple
question. I
times.
think, what is it? Come, can we please have both parties, please? Okay. All right, please continue with your line of questioning, Mr. Carnell.
I have no further questions, Judge.
All right. Any brief redirect, Ms. Waltrip?
Yes, Judge, I just want to clarify the sequence of events here. Ms. Behringer, so you had already gotten into bed when the defendant arrived, correct?
Correct.
What was the first thing that he did?
That was when he tried to get into the locked bedroom door where I was trying to go to sleep.
Okay, and after you opened that door because you didn't want to disturb the guests, what did he do next?
That's when he went, opened the balcony, stood on the side and was yelling at me, screaming.
And at what point did he push you? He testified that he
So that was in the living room area
was that after.
after,
Come off the balcony.
correct.
And you had mentioned that he had drugged you. At what point did that occur?
That was after that as well. That was from the doorway to the bedroom, across the rug, through the living room.
Okay. And was that before or after he picked you up and then slammed you down?
That was before.
Okay. So the sequence is that the balcony happened first, and then you were pushed, and then drugged, and then he picked you up and slammed you down into the bedroom.
Correct.
Okay. And the bloody nose, how did you sustain that?
His elbow and his arm from when he swung and hit me, and probably from the bed as well.
And at what point in that sequence did that occur?
That right before he slammed me down on the bed.
At any point, did you threaten the defendant?
No,
At any point, did you attack the defendant?
no.
At any point, did you jump on the defendant?
Objection, Your Honor. This has all been asked and answered. She asked this on direct examination.
I'll allow it. Go ahead, Ms. Waltrip.
Did you jump on the defendant?
No.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right. Any brief recross, Mr. Carnell?
No, Judge, no.
All right, so this witness, we may potentially need her again for the other motion, since I don't think I've allowed Mr. Carnell or Ms. Waltrip to fully flesh that out. Do you have other witnesses as it pertains to this immunity motion, Ms. Waltrip?
Your Honor, we won't call any further witnesses for the immunity motion.
Okay, all right. Would you like to make a closing for this immunity motion, Mr. Carnell?
Judge, I would like to,
Or would you
I
like
would
to just move into the next ones?
I'd like to call a rebuttal witness for the immunity motion.
Okay,
If, unless well, no, Judge, I'd like to call rebuttal witnesses. I'd like to call both of the officers.
okay, well, seeing as how they're noticed, all right, if you want to do that, we won't, I guess we won't delay that. I'm trying to figure out a way to get us, I guess we're not gonna finish this before the court reporter has to be excused. All right, so I'm trying to figure out a way for Ms. Behringer to go home and be done. Is there additional testimony that we need to develop as it pertains to the motion to admit?
The states or the defendants?
either party that would require Ms. Berenger to stay.
The,
And we excuse
the
her.
motion to in limine for the
Yes,
prior
One-
and subsequent,
yes.
Um,
What I'm trying to figure out is if she can be excused or if there's additional questioning or development we need as it pertains to those motions, just as it concerns Ms. Berenger.
I mean, it judge, it certainly would have been nice if I could have asked her.
Well, and that's why I'm asking you now if you need
I don't
additional
wanna waste-
opportunity.
I don't want to waste the court's time.
And we appreciate that too, but what I'm trying to figure out is if we should go directly into that portion, just so that she can go home before we go through the rebuttal witnesses.
In the interest of saving the court time, I don't think we need Ms. Berenger for anything additional on the motions in limine.
Okay,
I think we
Does
can
it-
do with what we've got on the record thus far.
and I think I have a clear picture of the allegations as well developed through the testimony here today. Ms. Waldrop, any perspective or as it pertains to that motion in limine?
For one moment, Judge.
All right, take your time, and I will allow you to call those rebuttal witnesses, all right?
There you go.
And she said,
And I have to ask, after all the witnesses have testified, would the live stream recording be sufficient for us to go through counsel's arguments? Or do you still need those taken down? If you do, that's fine. I'm just trying to figure out a way if we could have all the witnesses testify and then the parties could continue through lunch. If that makes sense, does that make sense to you?
No.
This is being recorded, so you could go back and watch the video as it pertains to the arguments that you and Ms. Waldrop would make. What I'm trying to get on the record is just the testimony of the witnesses so that we can excuse the court reporter. So, does the state or defense object to us just using the recording for the purpose of capturing our arguments, but allowing the testimony of the witnesses to be taken down?
Yeah, I guess I would be fine with that, Judge. I don't think that our closings need to be.
Ms. Waldrop, how do you feel about that?
That's fine, Judge.
Okay, so Ms. Berenger can be excused. Let's go ahead and bring in the first rebuttal witness and go through that. No, do you need Ms. Berenger? If the state wishes to have her.
we'll let her know she's excused.
Yeah.
She may stay, but we'll let her know she's
Right,
excused for the
I
day.
just want to
Yeah.
make it clear that she does not have to remain if you all don't need her. So let's,
Okay. I don't know. I guess the defense is calling him.
Judge Williams,
yes,
excuse me, sorry. I can continue to make a record by recording. Because I just have to be on a phone call in another room. So as soon as I'm finished, I can come back if y'all want to keep going. I think I've been able to, if anybody speaks that hasn't been on the record, if they'll just say their names and so I can identify the speaker. But other than that, as well as the live stream, I can keep going on the record. And it may not take an hour, but I have.
we appreciate it. Yes, Ms. Howard, we understand. What I'm thinking is as long as the witnesses' testimony is taken down, that's what's most critical.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to finish that before you have to leave. You may not, but we're gonna endeavor to do so.
Okay.
Does anyone need a 2-minute break? Just use the restroom?
Would love to use the restroom. I didn't want to interrupt.
Okay, let's do very quickly. We understood we may not get to our witnesses. All right, 2-minute break.
When you go out, you want to
All right, are we ready to continue?
Yes, Judge.
All right, please call your rebuttal witness, Mr. Cornell.
I will call Officer Leary to the stand.
Just stand in front.
All right, will you swear in the witness for me? Yes, please.
Well, affirm that at this point, you give a damn matter to go to, nothing but the truth.
I do.
All right. That's exactly right.
Carlos Leary, it's CARLOS, Leary, LEARY.
It's Investigator Leary now, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, I just want to make sure that I'm properly addressing you. Investigator Leary, when you get the call over the radio, do you know that you're coming to a domestic violence complaint?
It come on as a signal 58, which is the domestics. And it just says domestic, so it doesn't tell you who's involved.
Understood. Okay, but you get the code 58 over the radio and you know that this is a domestic complaint. Is that
Yes.
accurate? Okay, so when you're walking into the building, in this case, when you're walking into the hotel, is it fair to say you haven't made up your mind about who's going to jail yet, right? When you're first walking in the building?
My mind is not thinking about who's going to jail when I walk into a building.
Okay. You have to get there and you have to conduct an investigation. Is that accurate?
I don't understand the question that you're asking.
Okay. Before you can decide to arrest somebody, do you have to conduct an investigation?
And see if it's probable cause for an arrest.
And an investigation that requires you to ask questions and make observations. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
Now, one observation that I made from the videos of this investigation, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you get there, Joshua Turner, the defendant here, he's wearing jeans, a hoodie, and he's got his shoes on. Is that accurate?
I don't recall what he was exactly what he was wearing.
I'm sorry?
Because I don't recall exactly what he was wearing.
Okay. All right. Permission to approach the witness, Judge?
So is it necessary that we, yeah, if you're showing him a photo, yes, permission so granted.
I'll show you what I have marked on the back is defendants 2 and 3. Go ahead, take those. Do you remember those? Do you remember?
Yeah, I see these photos that you're showing me.
Okay. And those photos were taken by, was it Officer Davis? Is that right? She took those pictures?
I can't say because I didn't take those photos.
Do you remember standing out in the hall with Mr. Turner while those photos were being taken?
I do recall standing outside once he was placed under arrest.
Do you recall, is that how Mr. Turner looked when he was out in the hall under arrest?
According to the photos that you presented to me, yes.
Yes, okay. So Mr. Turner, would you agree based on those pictures, he's got his jeans on, he's got his hoodie, and he's got his shoes on. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And when you get there, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Is that right?
I'm not sure what the exact time when I arrived.
Would it help if I showed you something to refresh your recollection?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have you seen the CAD report in this case?
I have not.
Okay. Do you know what a CAD report looks like?
Yes, I do.
Permission to approach the witness, Judge?
No, granted.
I'll show you what I have marked here as defendant's number 4. All right. I understand you may need a few minutes to look at that and refresh your recollection.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me the date on that CAD report?
It said March 14, 2019.
Okay. And is that the CAD report related to the incident that we're here about today?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me, I believe there's a code that you as the officers are supposed to tell dispatch when you've arrived. Is that true?
Yes, we use a signal 7. We don't use the code.
Okay. The signal 7, and that's to tell dispatch hey, I've arrived at the scene, and you let them know, basically you're getting out of your car to go in, right?
Well, let them know that I arrived on the scene. That doesn't mean I'm getting out my vehicle.
Okay. All right, can you tell us when you arrived on the scene?
According to the care report, it says 2:58 AM.
So, going back to the question that I asked earlier, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and Mr. Turner is, still wearing his hoodie, his shoes and his jeans. Is that fair to say?
When he was saying yes.
But in the room, well, let me back up. So this is, nope. In the room, Miss Behringer, when you go into the room, Miss Behringer is wearing, a tank top and socks. Does that sound right?
No, I remember her wearing a white towel.
Okay. Just a white towel?
She had on other garments, but I don't recall what those exactly were, but I remember seeing the white towel.
Do you remember, did she have shoes on?
I don't recall the white towel being on.
Now, when you arrive at the room, Sergeant Smith is already in the room. Is that right?
When I arrived in the room, I believe that he was in the doorway of the room in the hallway.
Okay. He was already there though.
Correct.
He steps out in the hallway and you step into the room. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. And when he steps out in the hallway, all he tells you is that Miss Behringer said that they were arguing and there was no physical contact. Do you remember that? Do you remember Sergeant Smith telling you that as you stepped into the room?
I remember him asking me to go inside to speak with her.
Okay, but you don't remember what he told you?
I remember him asking me to go inside to speak with her.
So then, but then you go in the room and Sergeant Smith steps out of the room, right?
He's right outside the doorway when I'm inside of the room. I think the room has two parts. And we're in the first part, we're like the living room area.
All right, now Miss Behringer tells you some curious things, Investigator Leary. She did tell you that I didn't want him to leave. And I tried to make him stay on the couch because I didn't want him to be out on the streets. Do you remember her telling you that? If not, I can refresh your recollection with your video.
I also remember her telling me that she was shaken by him and made her hit her head as well.
Now, we'll get to that, investigator, but I'm specifically asking you, do you remember her telling you that she didn't want Mr. Turner to leave?
And I also remember her telling me that she was shaking and she hit her head.
Now, Investigator Leary, I'm really asking a specific question about something that she did tell you. Prosecution is going to have an opportunity to ask you all those bad things that you want to say, but I'm specifically asking you, did Miss Behringer tell you that she didn't want Joshua to leave?
And she also stated that she was shaking.
Yes, so let's
and
keep
hitting her head.
going. He said yes, let's keep going.
And she didn't just say it once to you. About a minute later, she said it again. She said, I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want to be left alone. I'm from New Hampshire. I've never been down here before. He already left me alone at the airport and he was mad about the car thing. Do you remember her saying that?
I don't remember those verbatim words right there being stated.
This was recorded on video though, right?
Yes.
Okay. You had a body cam on at the time?
Yes.
Okay. If I showed you some stuff from your body cam, could you identify it and tell me if this is body cam footage from that night?
Yes, but I would like to see the body camera video entirely instead of being in parts.
Well, I'm just asking if you can identify the body cam footage for me. Permission to approach the witness, Judge?
Permission to approach, what are we showing him?
It's body
crime?
cam footage.
Okay.
Can you just, if you would just identify, just tell me if this is your body cam footage?
Your Honor, I just want to clarify before we do this, this is being used to refresh his recollection.
Mr. Cornell?
Well, Judge, I'm going to tender the video into evidence. I need him to identify it first. I'm going to lay
Okay.
the proper foundation.
All right.
And Judge, I thought we had already had this conversation about.
I don't think he intends, do you intend to show the entire video today?
I intend to tender the evidence, Judge. If, you know, I would certainly appreciate it if Your Honor would watch it when considering the motions. But no, I was not going to spend the court's time today.
Watching the entire video. We've already agreed that we would use the video to refresh him. So let's ask him a question and show him the relevant portion. All right?
Do you remember this video? Is this your video?
Yes.
Okay. And is it a fair and accurate depiction of what you reported that night on your body cam footage?
Yes.
Judge, I have all three videos on one DVD, and I'll move to tender them into evidence. I'll move to tender this one into evidence, and then I'll obviously have to lay the proper foundation with Sergeant Smith for his video.
All right. Now, the question, we've discussed it previously. You're hoping that I will review the video in its entirety. What is it expected to show me that this witness cannot testify to from his own recollection?
Well, specifically this question that I just asked about Miss Behringer stating, I didn't want him to leave. I didn't want to be left alone. I'm from New Hampshire. I've never been down here before.
And I believe Officer Leary here has said that she did say that. So
Is that correct,
he
investigator?
admitted she said that. So I'm not sure why I'm watching that video yet. Okay,
Do you need to hear from me, Judge? I just want to.
I think I've got it. I mean, if you want to, Ms. Waldrop.
No, I was just going to object.
He's already said that he said that Ms. Behringer said that. So we haven't yet had a breakdown of any information that I'm sorry, I apologize. What is your correct title, sir? So I get it right?
Detective.
That Detective Leary has not yet given us. And again, should this case proceed to trial, standards would be different, but go ahead. Let's continue the line of questioning.
Detective, you think you agreed with me earlier that investigation requires asking questions and making observations, right?
Correct.
Did you think to ask Miss Behringer when she was telling you that she didn't want him to leave something like, well, he's still here. Did you do anything to prevent him from leaving?
I did not answer that.
Did you think to ask that question?
I did not answer that.
Now, this hotel room that you guys were in, it was not on the first floor, right?
Correct.
And so there's only one way out of that room. Is that accurate?
That's incorrect.
What's the other way out of that room?
The balcony.
But you just indicated that the hotel room was not on the first floor.
Correct.
But you think that a balcony that's not on the first floor is a way to get out of the room?
It has been for several people in the past.
Do you think that's a normal way for people to leave a hotel room?
The world is not normal that we live in.
Detective, have you ever arrested someone for false imprisonment before?
I have not.
Do you know what the elements of false imprisonment are?
If you can read the code section, I wouldn't know.
Oh, objection, Your Honor, relevance.
I'll allow it briefly. He said he doesn't know though, so I don't think we should read the code. So let's keep going.
So I'm sorry, Judge, what was the ruling?
What I'm saying is are you wishing to read him the elements? He said he does not know.
Yes, I would, Judge. I would like to I would like to let him know what they are.
All right, very briefly, I'll allow this inquiry. Go ahead.
So, Detective, it's OCJ 16541. And it reads that a person commits the offense of false imprisonment when in violation of the personal liberty of another, he or she arrests, confines, or detains such person without legal authority. So arrests, confines, or detains such person without legal authority. And I'd like to focus on the word confine, because Ms. Behringer says a couple of times that she didn't want Mr. Turner to leave. Now, again, you're there to conduct an investigation. Do you think it would have been helpful to ask Ms. Behringer if she had done anything to prevent him from leaving? Would that have been helpful?
That wasn't relevant to her bruises.
Well, let's talk about those bruises. Let's talk about that for a second, because
All right, I'm gonna stop you for 1 second, Mr. Cornell. I know Ms. Howard needs to leave now. So we have some options. Ms. Howard believes she can record and take down from the live stream recording, or we can take a pause until we know she can return. I'll let the parties decide if you believe she can make a good takedown from the live stream and we continue, or if you'd like to take a break and we return when Ms. Howard is able to be here live to take down this witness's testimony. Which would you prefer?
I'd prefer to continue, Judge.
Okay, Ms. Wondrop, do you have any objection to us continuing?
Your Honor, I just,
The
we
parties
had
would
several
need to,
issues with the,
the parties would need to consent. We would have to agree to whether we keep going. Ms. Howard, I'm sorry, I'm gonna interrupt you again. Do you believe you can from the live stream?
I believe I can from what I can do from home. I don't have to have the live stream. I can keep it going. Because I have a recording going at home as well as the takedown. So I don't have to have the live stream to do it.
Okay, you're gonna keep the recording up. The state would have to agree. So Ms. Waldrop and Ms. Reiser, your position regarding us continuing or taking a break till Ms. Howard's return. And we need to decide quickly because we are 2 minutes over her time to leave.
Your Honor, we would like it taken down as it's happening.
Okay, so we will be in recess, unfortunately. Okay. Ms. Howard, do you believe you'll be gone more than an hour?
Oh, no. It'll be an hour at the most. So I'm very sorry. I can't tell you exactly how long, but it's scheduled from 12 to 1.
All right.
So-
Yes. Is it? Okay, Ms. Howard, go ahead. When you're able to return, please give Ms. Bolton Turner a call. And she's gonna give you her number.
Okay.
All right.
404-453-6863.
6863.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.